Hi guys, it's Eve from Who's Phoebe and welcome back to another Doctor Who video. Now I am reviewing the Moonbase, so I've got all my notes written down because if I don't have my notes I would forget what I wrote down for positives and negatives on here, so I need them. So the Moonbase is, the Moonbase, written by Kit Pedler. I am so sorry if I pronounce names or writers wrong. Most of them I've never ever heard of, and some of them are really hard to pronounce. So episode 1, the premiere date for this one was the 11th of February 1967. Episode 2 was released the 18th of February 1967. The third episode was released the 25th of February 1967, and the last episode to this four-parter was released on the 4th of March 1967. Yes, I am thorough. I am thorough when I do reviews. I like to know the air dates of all the episodes. I am thorough these days. Let me just get the... In 2070, Earth's weather is being controlled with ease from the moon. When the TARDIS arrives at the Moonbase, the Doctor, along with his friends Polly, Ben and Jamie, is accused of starting a plague and is killing off the base crew. It's not long, however, before the time travellers discover the true cause of the deaths and a powerful, unstoppable race that the Doctor has met before, the Cybermen. So let's start with my positives. Good mystery to the story, a virus. Good mystery to it, really loved that element of this particular story. How the Cybermen have developed a virus to basically convert humans into being them, basically. I really enjoyed this element of the story because it adds a little bit of depth to the actual story itself and makes it a little bit more interesting for the viewer. And I bet back then on its original air date, I bet it was more exciting. Interesting story as well, having the Cybermen come back. Hello my baby boy. Reggie's here filming a video with me, of course he is. But yeah, interesting kind of story. I thought the whole use of the Cybermen was interesting in this. A Moonbase isn't typically where you'd find Cybermen, but I think it was interesting that they went with this. Also, I feel like the whole virus thing, Ross and Davis taking a leap out of their book. I feel like this is the first thing that classic Doctor Who did well, was make the Cybermen make a virus that converted humans into Cybermen. That's what made this story intensely interesting. Very memorable side characters as well. I really loved the side characters in this particular story. They were really very memorable and stuff, and I think that's exactly what you need in a four-part story when you've got the Doctor and companions. I will get onto that very soon because there is a little bit of a negative with this particular team, but I'll get onto that in a bit. Lots of technobabble. Really loved the technobabble. I kind of miss it in modern Doctor Who. They don't tend to have as much technobabble in the modern era as they do in the classic era anymore. I'm not exactly sure why. I'm presuming there's a reason to that, but I really love the technobabble that they have a lot in classic Doctor Who. Nice to see the Doctor not being held at gunpoint, and also get to see the Doctor's medical skills come to use, because they are there under the surface. The Doctor does have these medical skills, these extraordinary Gallifreyan medical skills. Unfortunately, you don't get to see them a lot, and I loved the idea of the Doctor kind of showing these medical skills in this particular story, because it felt right. It just felt right to have the Doctor use his medical abilities as well as his scientific abilities. So definitely a really good mix of medical skills that the Doctor had, and also scientific as well. I definitely really did think that was great. Cybermen, it was good to see that it wasn't such a long build up, that you got introduced to the Cybermen in the very first part. You saw a glimpse of them. I also don't like the animated first part. The second part is actual kind of what they managed to save, not animated. The third part is animated, and of course fourth part is not, so they've got two parts with the actual video footage. Great music is another one. Now on to the negatives, starting with of course the TARDIS team. Now in the William Hartnell era, having a big TARDIS team worked out so much more better, because you had Ian was able to do the fighting, Barbara was the brains, and Susan was the audience surrogate. In the case of the second Doctor, he's a younger version of the previous Doctor, and having such a big TARDIS team can cause a lot of problems, because unfortunately one of them has to have a lot less written about them, and unfortunately that was Ben. Unfortunately for Polly and Jamie had a lot written about them, and they get to do a lot of stuff in this particular story. But Ben, unfortunately, doesn't really get to do a lot. That's the trouble with having 3 companions with a younger Doctor. In the Peter Davison era, it worked. It worked quite well with Peter Davison, because you had Tegan as the audience surrogate, Nyssa as the scientist along with the Doctor, and Adric as the mathematician. So it worked with the 5th Doctor, because each companion had a certain job that they could do within the TARDIS. Didn't quite work in the 2nd Doctor era for so many reasons. The TARDIS team was too big, and the Doctor was a scientific there. Polly was the audience surrogate, but also Ben and Jamie were. It just got a bit confusing because you had 3 audience surrogates. I prefer it in the Peter Davison era, when you've got Adric the mathematician, who can answer some questions that the Doctor can, and you've got Nyssa, who understands a fair bit of science and understands a lot of the Doctor's technobabble, and then obviously, of course, you've got Tegan, who can also teach Adric a few kind of Earth customs as well, and answer a few questions that Adric might have, but also she can act as an audience surrogate for the audience watching. So I think that is better in the Peter Davison era, just due to the fact. Anyway, really unnecessary dialogue. I hate this. In classic Doctor Who, there is a lot of unnecessary dialogue, unless of course you get to the 5th Doctor and then that dialogue becomes necessary. But in this case it doesn't. You've got lots of talk about food. Why is that important? Cybermen don't eat food, so. Also, the colorization as well. I'm really not happy with the way that Doctor Who has been reforming these black and white episodes for the 60th. I prefer the original black and white versions. So because of that, this will get knocked down by a few points. I wasn't particularly happy about the idea that Ben and Polly had about using the plastic on the plastic chemicals for the Cybermen, because the Cybermen will evolve after this particular encounter. The Cybermen will evolve, so because they know that now that plastic chemicals can melt their chest units, they are going to evolve that, and that feature will be something that they rectify when they become more evolved and learn how to build more of themselves. That's a problem that can be rectified at a later date. The gold can't be rectified, so you can always defeat Cybermen with gold, but the plastic chemicals, the idea of using making a plastic chemical, and the idea of using it against them would work in theory, but Cybermen learn and they adapt, and they would have found a way by the time you get to the Pete Davidson era to make their chest units basically not dissolve when you put plastic chemicals to them. It's basically what I'm saying. Don't particularly like the animated episodes of 1 and 3 because I can lose attention, and it's really hard to focus because the animation kind of draws your attention away from that. I much prefer the actual proper action, and unfortunately for a lot of classic Doctor Who stories, there isn't that many stories that survive the archives apart from the coloured ones, so that's the issue here. Hilarious low budget stuff, which I find is really funny when you... Also, I don't like the idea, particularly for this particular one, that the cyber ships are saucers. That is so wrong in so many ways, because I always associate saucer type ships as Dalek ships. I don't associate them with Cybermen, so my theory to that is that the Cybermen hijacked a couple of the Daleks' ships. But eventually the Cybermen do have their own ships in the modern series. It's seen a lot as well, so they become more evolved and start making the correct cyber ships that we know today. A virus that turns humans into Cybermen. This was a good idea in theory, but the negative side to this is the fact that if Cybermen can make this virus and pop it into sugar on Earth, they can basically infect any human that they like. They can basically convert every human that they like. I don't see the point in that, to be honest. And the TARDIS team is a bit too big. But anyway, so time for my rating. I would rate this about maybe a 6 out of 10, being generous. Just because there's a lot more negatives to this than positives, and also the TARDIS team is too big, and it just basically just changes everything. The good thing about the last part is you'd see like a hand of the macra, so this kind of sets up for the next story for the next week, which is the Macra Terror, which I will be reviewing next. That is the next one on my list to review. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Oh, and I've got a couple of announcements. I could have done this at the beginning, but I'm doing it now. I am not doing Vlogmas this year. Due to the fact that I'm working now on a farm once a week, it would be virtually impossible to film anything, as we're not allowed to. We're not technically meant to. But what I will be doing is I will be doing 24 days of Doctor Who. Basically, I'm going to be reviewing 24 classic stories during the festive period. And personally, I cannot wait for that. I cannot wait to film 24 classic stories for the festive period. I obviously will also be reviewing the 60th anniversary as well, which is only 4 months away, which is scary. Anyway, that is all from me and my beautiful Bengal cat Reginald. Until next time, Alonzi. Thank you, Reg.